Get Ripple, the bright new drink with that ring-a-ding flavor. Ripple.
Happy birthday.
Oh, hey, it was my birthday.
It was your birthday.
We celebrated last night.
Yeah.
It was fun.
It was a good time.
Thanks for coming out.
It was fun. Camarillo closes early.
Very early, but we found a place that stayed open until 10.
Ooh, wow. That is pretty late for me. I got to tell you, I'm still tired.
Yeah, I've been kind of dragging a little bit today. We didn't even drink that much.
No.
I think it was a good amount. It was just enough to
You drank a lot more.
I had one more drink than you.
I don't think so. I think you had quite a few more than I did.
I had a Moscow Mule.
Uh-huh.
I had a margarita.
Yes.
And 2 beers.
That's it?
That's it.
I thought you had 3 beers.
Maybe 3. I don't think so, though.
I don't know.
Yeah, 3 at the most.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was.
I can't handle it.
But
I'll
I
fall
also
asleep.
started at like 5:30.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Until 10. So that was quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was super fun. Bunch of girls just hanging out in Camarillo.
You took a Britney Spears picture?
I did.
Yep.
Whose phone is that on?
It's on mine.
Oh, okay.
I'll send it to you.
Thanks.
We can post it on the Ripple.
Well, we'll see about that.
Oh, you'll decide. If you approve
approve
it, you'll see it on the Ripple.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, not that anybody would know this, but there's a picture on Instagram that Britney Spears took, I don't know how long ago.
Maybe 4 months. It wasn't that long ago.
Oh, yeah. No, it was posted fairly recently, but I think it's an old picture.
Oh, because who knows when her pictures are actually taking place. Yeah.
But
it was posted maybe 4 months ago.
Right. And she was in Camarillo, so the place where we went to celebrate your birthday last night, and she took a picture with the Camarillo statue.
Like the founder of Camarillo.
Adolfo? Is that who that is? I assume that's who that is, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Adolfo.
Anyway, it's a guy sitting on a bench, and she took a picture, so Rosa recreated it.
I did.
Yeah.
Because I want to be like Britney.
Who doesn't?
She's kind of cool.
Well,
yeah, maybe not right now.
I take that back.
Maybe like Britney circa 1999.
Is that when she was getting big?
I think so.
Oh,
right
okay.
around there. Yeah. So that was super fun. It was a good time for sure.
Yeah, it was fun. Anything else?
Today was the last day of Gish for me, the greatest internet scavenger hunt.
Oh, did you decide to do that?
I did.
How was it? Did you win? Where are you going on vacation? Are you going to Bali?
I'm maybe Antarctica.
Oh.
I don't know. We don't know if we win for quite a while. I doubt we won because there's like over 200 items that you have to complete.
Wow, that's a lot.
And
how many days do you have to do it?
A week.
Oh, okay.
And I think I did 12 items over a week. But
how many people are in your
team,
group?
Right.
Yeah. How many people are on your team?
I think there's 12 on a team.
Okay. So that's not too bad.
I actually posted one of the most recent tasks on the Ripple podcast Instagram page.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Was that the Be a Good Human one?
That was on my personal one. The other one was like, do your best or don't give up. It was don't give up.
Why?
You were supposed to write a handwritten positive message to yourself.
Okay.
And post it on your Instagram page, and you had from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. So
wow.
Yeah, you only had 1 hour to do it. And it was like the task went live. They did a live Zoom. So you had to log on, watch the Zoom, hear the task, complete the task, and use certain hashtags and stuff. And they were creating a world record.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
That sounds a little high, pretty intense. I didn't realize it was that time sensitive.
Well, not all of the tasks are, but that one was. But it's fun. And like I said, it's for good. Like, there's a lot of good things that come out of it. It's a lot of bringing awareness to maybe things in the world that you didn't know about that were happening, like the genocide in Canada.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
And
I learned that from TikTok.
Yeah. And an orca whale that's been imprisoned.
Imprisoned?
Well, it was taken from the wild and put into like a SeaWorld type place, and they know where its pod is. But I did a watercolor picture of it.
Well, that's helpful.
I'll show you it to you. It's been a long week. It was a birthday week. It was everything.
It was a fun week, though. That's good.
It was a super fun week. And Eden goes back to school on the 25th, so we don't have
already?
We don't have that much summer left, so we're taking full advantage of it.
That's crazy.
But did you bring me another birthday drink?
I did.
It's not super thirsty.
Okay. So I tried to make this drink. It's a complete failure. I had most of the ingredients.
I'm really glad it sucks, because every time I make a drink, you talk a whole bunch of crap about it.
Well, look it. I didn't try to substitute peanut butter with peanut butter protein powder like you did.
Or strawberries for blueberry puree.
That's not too bad, but no. So I tried to make a hurricane. And have you ever had a hurricane?
Yeah. Back at Hong Kong Inn days.
Yeah. And I think the type that they do at Hong Kong Inn is like a different recipe than the type that I tried to make. But it was literally the first thing. I typed in Louisiana cocktail. That was the first thing that came up. And I'm like, cool, I can do that. I have most of the ingredients. So the ingredients that were called for on that particular recipe was like a clear rum, a dark rum, lemon juice. I had it on my phone, but my phone died. And then like passion fruit syrup.
Okay.
Which clearly I don't have passion fruit syrup, but I did have strawberry lemonade. So I'm like, okay, that's sweet, syrupy, whatever. I'll throw that in. It tastes like crap. It's really bad. And then as I scrolled down, I saw all these other recipes that sound way more similar to like the Hong Kong Inn type drink that we had, which are way more fruity. It had like orange juice and grenadine and, you know, things like that. I'm like, okay, that sounds way more like the typical hurricane that I'm used to.
Remember the volcanoes at Hong Kong Inn that they'd light on fire?
Vaguely.
And if you had the choice, you could either let the fire continue to burn in the center of the volcano, or you could blow out the fire and pound that like 100% alcohol.
Oh, it was probably like 151. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those were your options.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to let it burn off. What a waste.
But have you ever had 151 straight?
Well, no, but I have had flaming Dr. Peppers.
Okay.
Which is like the same sort of concept. Have you ever had those?
No, but I hear they're really good.
They are. And they're so deadly. And you're going to have the worst hangover of your life if you have them. But we had them in college, and it was quite the fire hazard, because you would take a shot glass, fill it with amaretto.
I love
yeah,
amaretto.
you love amaretto. So this is probably already right up your alley. And then you'd float 151 on the top. You would light that on fire. And then you would drop it into a glass of Coors Light.
Oh, wait, so there's no Dr. Pepper involved?
No. But the thing is, like, Coors Light, whatever, it's pretty much sparkling water. And then the amaretto kind of like caramelizes, and it makes that Dr. Pepper flavor.
Oh, that's
so
weird.
when you drink it, it tastes like Dr. Pepper.
Who invented that?
I don't know, but
like
it's so smart.
It's like a real drink, though.
It's a real drink. Like, I think if you Googled it, that recipe would come up.
Okay, so it's not like you guys invented it?
No.
Okay.
But man, was it hazardous, because I remember one time somebody spilled the 151, and we were making all of these drinks on a pool table.
Oh.
So it was just like this flame going across the pool table. I remember people being so drunk that they tried to take the shot while it was on fire.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. It was
That's
good times.
amazing.
Lots of burned eyebrows.
Oh, I bet it smelled terrible.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So,
but can I have my gross drink?
You can try it. You're not going to want it. I also brought, since we're talking about like Louisiana, we're specifically talking about New Orleans. How do you say it? New Orleans?
New Orleans.
Okay.
I mean, that's how I say it. How do you say New Orleans?
Sometimes. I don't know. I feel like I go back and forth.
I say New Orleans.
New Orleans. Okay.
NOLA?
Oh, I don't say that.
I think you have to be like a local.
I feel like you do. I feel like it's not. You know what? Speaking of that, so you met the guy that I work for the other day who came into town from Kansas City.
Right.
And he kept calling California Cali.
Uh-huh.
I really wanted him to say, it just bugged me. It's like a little, like nobody says that, right?
No one from California
Calls
says
it Callie.
It's like,
No.
no.
Oh, yeah. This is Cali, huh?
No.
And I'm like,
no, it's not.
no, this is California.
Right. It's California. Yeah, I don't.
Isn't that weird?
I will say I live in SoCal.
Yeah, but I'll never say Cali. It just sounds weird.
Yeah, that's weird. I've seen it written before, and there's that whole like I'm going back to Cali song.
Yeah, I feel like it's in a lot of songs, but no,
Those people don't really live in California. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm ready to hear a story about Nola.
Yes, and I made you a hurricane.
Okay. So
Do you see where we're going here?
I'm feeling a little bit of a story starting already.
Yeah, is that a big hint?
A big one.
Okay, so we're going back to August 26th of 2005, and this is when the mayor of New Orleans had issued a voluntary evacuation as Hurricane Katrina approached. But nurses, doctors, and medical staff from the local hospitals were used to these tropical storm warnings, and they knew the routine. And it seems like a lot of people were kind of used to it. Like, oh, okay, another storm coming through. We know, kind of almost like when we get wildfires out here. Like, yeah, sometimes they can be a big deal, but most of the time it's kind of a wait and see sort of situation.
Or like earthquakes. Like, I mean,
yeah.
I guess you never
earthquakes,
get
you don't really have warnings.
But a lot of people have, an earthquake kit. You're prepared for it.
You know where you're going to go, like what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
You kind of have an idea.
Right.
So the routine for them was to pack up some drinks and snacks and load up the family and pets and take shelter at Memorial Medical Center. Their family would enjoy air conditioning and TV powered by the hospital's generators if the power went out.
This is just like any random family.
Mostly the families of the people who worked there.
Oh, of the hospital.
Of the hospital.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then they would work overtime and tend to the patients as the storm passed. And it was a pretty safe place to be because the hospital had been there forever. It had weathered so many storms. It was built in 1926, and it's just this big, strong structure.
Okay.
So, I mean, if there's really no risk of your house being damaged or anything like that from the storm, it's still at least a place that has power for a while.
Because they have the generators.
Exactly. If your power goes out, you have a place to hang out.
Okay.
So that was the deal. That's what they were doing. However, as Hurricane Katrina grew closer, she grew stronger. The Category 5 storm, blowing winds 126 to 160 miles an hour, was nearing landfall.
That is bonkers.
I can't even imagine that. Like, I don't even have a concept of, like, what that would feel like.
When we get winds, like, hardcore, our Santa Anas around here, they blow pretty darn hard. And, like, there's times where, like, you're, like, almost doing that, like, walking
Yeah, you're, like, leaning.
Thing.
You're, like, at a 45.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't even know what our winds hit up to. But nothing even...
No.
Not even close.
Not even close.
I think maybe, like, 50 miles
50,
an hour
yeah.
winds?
I was going to say like between 40 and 60. So yeah, like 50.
Okay.
And I think even that is like
a lot.
That's a lot. That's like abnormally.
That's when trees start going down.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you add another 100 miles an hour to that.
Nope, unimaginable.
Holy crap.
Okay, so the voluntary evacuations were now mandatory at this point because they knew it was coming in strong. But it was coming fast. So the interstates were completely jammed with traffic. I'm sure you've seen the pictures where people just can't get out. They can't go anywhere. Residents,
that must be so stressful. I can't even imagine feeling trapped like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were attempting to flee the Gulf Coast area. Those who couldn't flee were told to take shelter in the Superdome, which we all heard of what happened there. Mm-hmm. And that was listed as a shelter of the refugees of last resort. Like, how creepy does that sound?
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Residents who couldn't or refused to leave their homes were warned to fill their bathtubs with water so that they would have some fresh water to drink. And they were also told to keep an axe with them in case the floodwaters came so high that they had to cut their way out of the attics.
That is terrifying.
Yes, absolutely. But still, the medical staff at Memorial Hospital stayed behind. They had a duty to protect their patients, and they knew that evacuation for many of them was not an option. So on the night of August 29th, more than 2,000 people hunkered down in the sturdy hospital, including more than 200 patients and 600 workers. The violent wind shook the walls, and flying debris shattered windows. The staff comforted screaming patients as the building was pelted with shingles from nearby shotgun homes. Yet still, the hospital stood strong.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah, and that was like kind of the worst of the storm. So at 4:55 a.m., the supply of city power to the hospital failed, which they kind of expected. But just as planned, the auxiliary generators hummed to life and provided... I went like really theatrical with my writing of the story this time. I have a lot of like adjectives.
It's good.
So the generators hummed to life and provided power to critical equipment, lights, and outlets. Non-essential things like the television and the air conditioning were shut down. But that night, the floodwaters receded, giving proof that once again, Memorial had survived another storm. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so there was a planned power outage at a friend's like street about a few days ago. And his father is on a air ventilator type breathing apparatus. And luckily it was planned, like they were given notice that this power outage was going to happen, but also luckily they had a generator that they could use to keep his air going, because like those people will die without that.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure these people in the hospitals, like, once that power, has that 30 seconds or whatever of click off before the generators click on, there's a bit of panic in that.
Yeah, just itself. Hoping that like, okay, this is what's supposed to happen. Let's
just wait.
No.
Okay,
there it goes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine that even though, like I said, it's fairly routine for them to go through something like this, it's still, there's probably a little bit of anxiety, like, okay, hopefully everything goes as planned. We have these emergency plans in place for these reasons, and let's hope that we can stick to them.
Right.
So after the storm had passed, they were like, okay, it's fine. We survived. We're getting through it. We have all hands on deck. We're making sure the patients get the care that they need. And it was almost like the sun was coming up and there's like this sigh of relief. But unfortunately, that sigh of relief was very short-lived, because on the morning of August 30th, so the following day, a nurse looked out the window and immediately called to her co-workers. She screamed, "Look outside." And that's when what they saw was hard to believe. Water was gushing from the sewer grates. Just moments later, a dark stream of water grew into a river as it filled South Claiborne Avenue, which was the street leading to the hospital.
What is it?
Well, this is when they realized that the levees had failed and Memorial Hospital was located at the low point of an already below sea level city of New Orleans.
Oh.
So that's what really caused most of the damage. Not necessarily the storm itself, but because these levees were damaged by the storm, it was basically floodgates into this entire city.
Mm-hmm.
So,
especially, like you said, the low areas.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So then Chief Executive L. Rene, I want to say his name is pronounced Go. Yeah, I'm going to go with Go. Okay. It's one of those French names. Quickly informed the staff to close up the hospital. The emergency power transformers to the hospital were located just a few feet above ground level, and it wouldn't take much water to disable the majority of the medical center.
Okay.
So this is when we're talking about those generators that they're relying on, and they are, for whatever reason, I guess, I don't know how electricity works in situations like this, but they're always on the ground pretty much.
Or in a basement.
So these were just above the ground. And if these got flooded, they just can't function. So they're seeing all this water coming towards them and they're like, holy shit, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. So the staff turned to nursing director Susan Muldrick, who acted as the emergency incident commander. She was prepared for things like hurricanes. She had procedures for evacuations, and they had these backup generators if there was ever a power outage. But they were never prepared for all three of these emergencies to happen at once.
Yeah, because why would you? I mean, chances of that happening are pretty rare, you would think, but
I don't know. Okay, so I guess most people are thinking like what you said. I don't really have any experience of like what it's like to live in an area that has hurricanes, but typically I imagine hurricane. What was that?
That was me. Sorry, I hit a button.
Typically I imagine like hurricanes coming with a lot of water, and like flooding is already a risk, right? Even without these levees breaking.
I mean, you figure hurricanes bring a lot of rain. But I don't know. I don't know much about hurricanes.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I'm kind of, this is like the extent of my knowledge is researching for this particular story. But I don't know why the risk of flooding wasn't considered with these generators. And I'm sure there's like some super obvious reason that I'm just not aware of. But yeah, I didn't really get it.
And the hurricane broke the levees, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted
Otherwise, it's a really strange coincidence.
Right. It's not like they just overflowed. They actually were broken.
I think it was a combination of the two.
Okay.
I think there is structural damage.
Creating.
I'm sure somebody will tell us, but bottom line is water coming bad.
Right.
So, okay. So they weren't prepared for something like this to happen. So what do you do when the backup power fails and you have to evacuate and now you can't evacuate because the streets themselves are becoming rivers?
Right.
So this is what they went to next. So at 12:28 p.m., Memorial Administrator typed in all caps "help" in the subject line of an email sent out to all of the surrounding hospitals, letting them know that they would soon lose power, and more than 180 patients had to be evacuated and transferred to other facilities for treatment. Meanwhile, the nurses turned the fourth floor into a command center, where they quickly prioritized which patients needed to be evacuated.
How many floors is this hospital?
If I remember right, I think it was like 7.
Okay.
I want to say it was 7 stories.
So quite a big hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you look at, because I looked up pictures because I was just kind of curious, like what kind of building withstands storms for,
years
90
and
years.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looked like a fairly big concrete type.
Big hospital.
Yeah. So it was a pretty big place. So, they decided that first the babies in the neonate ICU would be evacuated, which makes sense, followed by pregnant mothers and critically ill adults that were at great risk for increasing temperatures. Because remember, when the city power went out, the AC went out. And this is Louisiana in August.
It's real hot.
It's real hot. So temperatures were quickly rising into the high 90s. And at one point, they even went into the hundreds. And it's like super humid.
Right. I was just going to say
So that feels like even hotter than regular dry heat that we get out here. So Dr. Richard Deckman brought up an idea about these evacuations that had never been discussed in any of the previous emergency plans. And he suggested that all patients with DNRs should go last. So are you familiar with DNRs?
I do not resuscitate.
And what do you think about that?
I mean, I understand what he's doing with the NICU and, the pregnant moms and stuff going first, but then the DNRs going last. I guess it depends on like what state those people are in.
Right, because if you have a DNR on file, but you only came in for a broken leg.
Right.
So I was kind of confused by this. So I looked it up, and this is a quote taken directly from ProPublica, And it says a DNR order is a signed order by a doctor, almost always with the informed consent of a patient or healthcare proxy. And it means one thing: a patient whose heartbeat or breathing has stopped should not be revived. A DNR order is different from a living will, which under Louisiana law allows patients with terminal and irreversible conditions to request in advance that life-sustaining procedures may be withheld or withdrawn. So it's not quite the same thing.
Right.
So there's kind of a strange rationale that they came up with deciding that people with DNRs would go last. And Dr. Bell Armington, a neuroradiologist, agreed, and that he kind of justified it by saying that he thought the patients who did not wish their lives to be prolonged by extraordinary measures wouldn't want to be saved at the expense of others in an emergency evacuation like this.
I could see that.
But there's nothing in those orders that specify that. That's an assumption that he made.
Okay.
So I don't know. Just something to think about.
Okay.
As we go along.
Okay. I'll ask when it gets closer.
Okay. But this wasn't something that was really argued or debated, because at the time, making this decision wasn't really a big deal because they assumed that rescuers would be on their way to evacuate the entire hospital within a few hours.
It's interesting that they even made that decision then. Like, to begin with.
Yeah.
The DNRs would go last.
That would even be brought up.
Mm-hmm.
I would think you would be like, okay, we're going to prioritize the babies and then these people who are super critical and then everyone else after that. It's weird that they specified, no, these people are going last.
Right. I feel like they would have gone like, okay, let's move the, wing 4 first, and then we'll move on to wing 3 and wing, like almost like throughout the hospital rather than, and maybe that's how the hospital is set up. Maybe, no, they don't put DNR people in one wing.
Oh, no.
No. So, yeah.
These are the people we're going to ignore.
Right.
No, yeah, but I think you're right. I think that they, like I said, they have a neo-NIC ICU. So I would think, okay, that section, that floor, whatever the hospital, they're all going at the same time. And then we have the maternity ward and they're going. And then we have these people on certain life support machines, then they need to go, I think they would all be in the same areas, and you would just number them like, all right, these are the first, and then not necessarily saying these are the last, but they're just not as critical as the others. But yeah, like I said, at the time it wasn't really a big deal because in their evacuation plan, they kind of had it like, okay, we're going to contact these groups, they're going to come get us, and we're going to be out of here within a few hours. But they had no idea just how wrong they were. So initial attempts to fly helicopters, because remember, they can't drive in. It's a river outside.
Right. You need like a boat.
Yeah. So initial attempts were unsuccessful because still these high winds were blowing. And even the most experienced pilots couldn't risk flying in such powerful wind situations. It just wasn't safe for them. It wasn't safe for the patients. They have to land on the top of this hospital.
I have to say they can't, really bring in airplanes because there's no runways.
Right.
So the helicopters have to land on the
helipad at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until late that afternoon that Coast Guard and private ambulances began to land on the helipad located atop the 8-story building. By then, all of the power to the elevators had failed because remember, it's like generators are only powering the most critical things. And apparently elevators weren't one of them. So they are carrying these patients, some of which are bedbound, up all of these floors to get to the helipad.
Right.
So a crew of doctors, nurses, and family members carried memorial patients. And this is kind of how it worked. It's kind of a weird thing. So they carried them, first they had to carry them down a flight of stairs and then wheel them to the hospital wing where they had the last working elevator to the second story, and they could only get to the second story. And this is when they maneuvered a stretcher past through a roughly like 3 by 3 foot opening that was in the machine room, whatever that is. So they had like this hole in a wall, and they would put the patient through that hole that went into the parking garage. And from the parking garage, they still had their cars there. They drove them up to the helipad. So it was like a big ordeal to make this happen. So many patients were placed in the back of like a pickup truck, and then they were driven. Yeah, crazy. They were driven to the top of the garage, and then they were carried up 2 flights of metal stairs that led to the helipad.
Wow. And this is probably, 2-3 patients max in, a vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the next thing I was going to say, is that they could only take a couple people. So like if you were there, say you had just had a baby and this baby was in the neonic, that baby was going to go with maybe a nurse, maybe the mother, but definitely not the whole family. Like that's all you can do.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was very critical of who got to go. And again, like you said, maybe 3 in a helicopter max. The pilots at this time were super impatient because they only had a small window of time where it was safe to fly. And then they had hundreds of people, probably thousands of people, that also had to be rescued off of rooftops.
Right.
And if you look at it from the big picture and you're sending helicopters out to go rescue people, you're like, okay, do I send them out to the people that are in the hospital that have doctors and nurses and equipment and supplies there? Or do I send them out to the person who is literally trapped in the elements on top of a roof with nothing?
Right. It's a mom and her 3 kids standing on a rooftop
in these winds. I mean, it's still windy. They might not have any
This is
water.
giving me such anxiety.
Yeah, so I can understand why a lot of the help that got to them was delayed, because they weren't necessarily the priority in this particular situation. And I think
Because they were, quote, safe.
right, to an extent. So the evacuation went super slowly. The helicopters could only take a few patients at a time, and the process was both mentally and physically exhausting.
Absolutely.
And when night fell, the Coast Guard notified the staff that they had one more helicopter available for an evacuation. But at this point, the staff was completely exhausted and they had declined the offer because they couldn't risk working in the dark, because like limited power, they probably have like flashlights, maybe headlamps, lanterns, and they're doing all of this maneuvering. And then once they got up to the helipad, there was no railing. So they didn't want to put themselves
at falling over
at risk trying to help, didn't want to create more patients
right
by falling off an 8-story building.
Does it say how many people were evacuated on that first day?
57 patients were evacuated that first day.
And does it say the amount of time?
It was just the first day. I don't know.
From sunup to sundown.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and they had to take a break, had to take a rest, had to recollect. And then at 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning, August 31st, only 48 hours after Katrina made landfall, the emergency generators came to a stop.
And why is that? Because of the water damage?
Yes. The floodwaters had gotten high enough to make them stop running.
Right. They're filled with water at that point.
Yeah. And this is a quote from pulmonologist Dr. Ewing Cook. And he called the sudden silence the sickest sound he'd ever heard in his life.
Oh my gosh.
Alarms rang out as life support monitors and ventilators had switched over to their emergency battery reserve, which only bought them 30 minutes before they would shut off. 7 patients were on these life-saving ventilators. Staff immediately contacted the Coast Guard to take them back up on their previous offer. They carried the patients up the flights of stairs while bagging them manually. Are you familiar with that?
Uh-huh. Go ahead and explain it.
So it's like, instead of having a ventilator that's pumping air into their lungs, they have pretty much this rubber bag attached to a mouthpiece that covers
a CPR mask.
Yeah, like a CPR mask, and they're manually pumping by squeezing this bag air into their patient's lungs. One nurse,
so they're breathing for their patient,
right?
By hand.
Yeah, and it's not easy to do. One nurse bagged her patient for nearly an hour while awaiting evacuation, only to have him die on the helipad.
Oh no! Because she couldn't keep doing it.
It just wasn't getting him enough oxygen. I just think that, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they know for
Right.
certain. But I mean, a ventilator is going to be so much more powerful and
Consistent.
precise and consistent than somebody trying to manually do that for an hour. So Dr. Anna Powell took over bagging another patient after his nurse's hands became so tired, but shortly after they lost him too. So go ahead.
Let me ask you this. These patients that were on ventilators, do we know if they had DNRs or not? Or were they, I know this is my sick, morbid thought process, but were they coherent or were they comatose?
Well, I think if somebody is on a ventilator, they wouldn't have a DNR because a DNR would
is
prevent
breathing
that
for them. Yep.
Yeah. So that's like that step of
I didn't even think about that.
extraordinary life-saving, like a ventilator, it wouldn't be put on somebody with a DNR at all.
Yeah.
So at least that's my understanding.
No, that makes total sense. I didn't even think about that part. I wonder if they were awake.
I kind of I don't know.
I hope
I
not.
really don't know. I wouldn't think so, but I'm not certain. So a total of 3 patients died the early morning hours after their ventilators had failed. The 4 others that were on ventilators were safely evacuated.
Okay, that's good.
So the patients who passed, their bodies were taken to the hospital chapel where the chaplain prayed over them to comfort, and they also had to comfort these distraught nurses and doctors who were working so closely for so many hours to try to save them and just couldn't do it.
I think chaplains are like some of the most special people because they see the constant like sadness and horrible situations. You don't call out a chaplain for a celebration. You call out the chaplain when horrible things happen. And I don't know. I just think that's a special, special person.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot. I mean, you were the shoulder to cry on for everything.
I'm my principal at the very first school I worked at. He's also the Ventura County Sheriff Chaplain.
Oh, wow.
And probably one of the kindest people I've ever met in my life.
Well, I sure hope so.
Well, but even in like I mean, as a principal, like of students.
Oh, cool.
Just a really, really good person. And you would think a job like that, like you only could do it for a year, 5 maybe. He's been doing it since before I knew him. And he's still doing it.
Yeah, that would be really rough. Quick question, since you brought that up. What's the difference between a chaplain and like a pastor or priest or...
A pasture is where cows live.
Pastor. A priest or any of those other... Like what makes a chaplain a minister? Are they the same thing?
No, I don't think so. Because the guy I know... He doesn't like work at a church.
Okay.
He's, like I said, he was a principal.
Huh.
He just would.
I don't know how that works.
He would go there to support people.
I'm curious now because when you said they don't get called out to happy events, I'm thinking like, well, what if they also marry people? Or is that something totally different?
I think that's totally different.
Okay.
Yeah, because the guy, like I said, the guy I know, he was just the chaplain. He didn't work at a church. He wasn't like up there giving sermons or anything.
Yeah.
He just was a principal and called out for horrible.
Wow.
He was just in the paper last week, actually.
That's crazy.
Hugging a mom whose children had passed away in a car accident.
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Terrible.
That takes a certain kind of person. I just saw, kind of random, I just saw recently that our local Navy base is hiring a chaplain. And I'm like, oh my God.
Well, and
that'd be so hard.
I'm pretty sure Ron doesn't get paid.
Oh, well, this is a paid position.
Oh, okay.
But either way, I mean, no amount of money
I couldn't do it.
I'd put you through that kind of.
I
mean, they're like saints. That's pretty amazing.
Seriously. Yeah.
Oof. All right. So let's get even darker.
Okay.
So, and at this point, I'm assuming that the morgue in the hospital is flooded because they are now storing these bodies
in the chapel.
So when the sun came up that morning, they're hit with another unbearable day of heat. The staff was now fanning patients with medical folders, like just literally just sitting there fanning them, placing wet towels on their heads to try to keep them cool, which I can't even imagine. Like, imagine you are already in so much pain from whatever
surgery
or who knows what, and now it's just stifling, hot, muggy, humid, no AC. Like, it has to make it like 100 times worse. But to make things 100 times worse, that was also the day where water stopped flowing out of the taps and the toilets could no longer be flushed.
And why was that?
That I don't know. I don't know. They just stopped working. I'm not exactly sure what would cause that.
Do you need electricity? I mean, this is a stupid, ignorant question, but do you need electricity to get water to your pipes?
Maybe like their domestic water source, their pumps got flooded.
Okay.
Maybe that's what happened. I'm not sure.
I feel like it would have to do with something with electricity.
Yeah, so probably wherever they're getting their city water has pumps that's pumping it out to all of these places, and maybe they stopped. I'm not sure.
And they were somewhat aware of that because they did tell people, like, fill up your
bathtubs. Yeah. But either way, it sucks. It's terrible. No matter what the reason was for it, the heat and the humidity spread the smell and the stench of the sewer from the unflushed toilets and the sweaty, unwashed bodies throughout the halls of Memorial. So Memorial felt like a deserted island, both figuratively and literally. But as the day went on, survivors began to hear of life beyond the walls of the hospital.
What's that mean?
They started hearing activity of other people around them.
Like
gunshots.
Wait, what?
Mm-hmm. So there was a bank down the street and it was being robbed. So they're kind of still in the know of like the news going on, and they're just hearing these gunshots being fired. And the staff was worried that they would be next because their hospital, and what does a hospital have?
Drugs.
It has drugs. And they thought, like, for sure they're going to be robbed for drugs, for maybe medical equipment, or maybe even just food and resources at this point.
How are people getting to the bank? Are they in little boats?
There's people on boats, yeah. There's people in boats around. I remember
seeing pictures of, little, like, rowboats and stuff.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure how they got there. I just know that they did. And yeah, I assume that that's how they had to do it.
Like, really? That's your concern right now?
Oh, yeah. There was people, I remember watching the news and seeing people like full on like trying to loot stores during this. And I think that when our typical societal structure starts to break down, people just start doing crazy, irrational things. And I mean, under that amount of stress too, like you might just make stupid decisions, and that's what happened. So as darkness fell, rumor spread that evacuations would come to a halt for the night because people were shooting at rescuers.
Oh, that's not okay.
In the adjacent parking lot, one of the doctors who I mentioned earlier, Dr. Go, distributed guns to security and maintenance staff who cordoned off the hospital's entrances.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is, what's my time at right now?
48.
Okay. I think I'm going to stop there. So you kind of have an idea of this hellhole situation that they're in right now and how hard these medical staff is working to keep things, no pun intended, afloat. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts so far?
Well, first of all, I hate that you're stopping because I'm like trying to breathe. And I know what happens because of the news, media, whatnot, but the details that you're giving are so much more in depth and I feel like thorough than what we saw on Channel 11 or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like this is like a zombie apocalypse.
Apocalypse?
Yeah, that word. Apocalypse. And, like they're handing out guns to fight off the zombies and keep your food and water and medical supplies safe.
Yeah. What's so crazy to me is that these people, I mean, this wasn't 100 years ago. This wasn't that long ago at all. They're living in regular, everyday life in America. And within 48 hours, their entire outlook, their entire situation is it's like a war zone. Mm-hmm. Within 48 hours.
Yeah. I mean, they knew, like you said, they knew a hurricane was coming, but they also live in an area where hurricanes are, common. They've been through them before. It's not some random hurricane happened.
Yeah. And at the same time, too, I think it's like it adds an extra level of just horror that this is happening at a hospital, because hospitals are always the safe place.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm having an anxiety attack, a panic attack. I just need to be at the hospital. I'm having pain in my chest. I'm having an allergic reaction. If I get to the hospital, everything's going to be okay.
Right.
Like, you have that reassurance of like, these people are here
to help me,
save me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so.
And that's kind of what I thought, like at the very beginning. You're like, oh, it's, these people are at the hospital and they, like you said, they have food, they have water, they have medical supplies. That is like, I would feel okay being there.
Yeah.
In a, in that kind of a situation, especially in an emergency situation.
Yeah. Yeah, you would think that would be the place to go, but it kind of worked against them. So yeah, so we'll continue the story. And just so you know, like you had mentioned, like, oh, you're hearing all of these new details that you didn't hear before. I didn't give out my main source at the beginning of this, but this is mostly, I'd say majority of the information came from the book 5 Days at Memorial, which is, I think I mentioned last week, it's like 17 hours on did. Audible. So I'm trying to condense that into maybe 2 hours. So there's a lot of detail not put in here. I really had to cut it out. But if you do know the full story and there's elements that I'm leaving out, just know that's why.
Tell me the title of the book again.
5 Days at Memorial.
And by who?
Shoot. Her name is, hold on. I have it on my Audible app. I want to say it's Sherry Fink, but I could, my phone's dead. Do you have internet?
I can look it up.
I'm pretty sure her name is Sherry Fink. And she was this investigative journalist, so she has a lot of direct quotes from the people who were involved. And she even has kind of anonymous sources that she will not reveal because certain things are
privacy
said that they don't want known to the public.
Interesting. So, you are correct. It is Sherry, Sheri Fink.
Oh, good. Okay.
And yeah.
So yeah, I highly recommend it.
Life and death in a storm-ravaged hospital.
Yes.
Well, do you want me to lighten the mood a little bit?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me give you 2 truths and a lie.
Oh, yay.
Okay, so I have 2 truths and a lie about Louisiana.
Yes.
All right, so you've got to figure out which one is the lie. The official state insect of Louisiana is the honeybee.
Oh, that's kind of nice.
The state of Louisiana is named after Louis Armstrong. And
no. Okay. Go ahead.
And Britney Spears is from Louisiana.
Oh. Okay. I feel like the honeybee is right because I feel like Louisiana has some kind of special honey at their state. Yeah? Does that sound familiar to you at all? You're not going to give me any hints.
Sure.
Louis Armstrong?
Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong. Who is that?
like a trumpet player.
But isn't Louisiana way older? Because that's kind of what I thought.
Mm-hmm. Like a jazzy.
But how could they name? Like, I feel like that state's way older than he is.
Okay.
Okay. And then we just talked about Britney Spears. So I could see you throwing in a Britney Spears fact just because it's top of mind and just making that the lie.
Okay. So what do you choose?
But I don't think that you would make up the Louis Armstrong thing. Oh, I know. Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Louis Armstrong is named after Louisiana.
Oh.
That's what I'm going with. That's the lie.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Am I right?
I don't know if he's named after Louisiana, but you are correct.
Yes. Okay.
Louis Armstrong is from Louisiana.
Okay. So what era was he in? Because he was not around the time Louisiana became a state.
No, Louisiana is actually named after King Louis or Louis, XIV.
X is 10. I is -1 and 14.
Okay,
I
there
think.
you go.
Wait, right?
I don't-
14.
I-
I'm going
I-
with 14.
I don't know Roman numerals. So Louisiana is actually named after him, King Louis the 14th or whatever number that is.
Okay.
But I wonder if Louis Armstrong was named after him or the state. But
Probably
he
not.
is from Louisiana.
Okay.
Good rationale there. I'm a little impressed. I thought throwing the Britney in there would throw you off. But
Oh,
she
yeah.
is from Louisiana.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
But there's a little lightness in that story.
All right. Well, come back next week for part 2 of the hospital in hell. And yeah, is there anything else? I feel like we're missing something. I
No.
feel like this went by really fast.
It really did. But yeah, we'll do part 2 next time.
Okay.
So I get another week off.
Okay. And if you want to send Rosa her birthday gifts, because you missed it, and also my birthday is coming up pretty soon. So if you want to send us both birthday gifts,
Save shipping. Send them together.
yeah, just do it all in one.
Send us a message on Instagram or send us an email to theripplepodcast@gmail.com, and we'll hook you up with all the details on how you can
'cause
send us a gift.
I'm not giving you my home address.
No.
Or Rosa's, because she lives too close to me. But yeah. Okay.
All right, everybody. Don't forget to be a fountain.
And not a drain.
Bye.